My name is Ariana Mitchell, and I was supposed to get married last week. But I didn't because the night before the wedding, I overheard a conversation that shattered everything I believed about the man I loved. I'm 27 years old, a full-time ER nurse, and a mother of two beautiful twin boys, Noah and Nathan. They just turned 14 months old, and to me, they're everything. Their father, my fiancé, Logan Pierce, was the man I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. We had been together for 3 years. And while the beginning of our relationship wasn't perfect, I truly believed we'd fought through the worst and made it out stronger. But looking back now, I was wrong. So, incredibly wrong. When I first found out I was pregnant, Logan completely freaked out. He begged me to consider other options, said we weren't ready, that our careers were just beginning, that this would ruin everything. But I couldn't bring myself to even consider terminating. I told him I'd be having the babies, with or without him. I gave him an out. I didn't demand anything, not even child support. I just knew in my heart I was ready to be a mom. I'd always had a strong maternal instinct, and even though it was scary, something in me said this was right. He backed off eventually, said he needed time, and I gave it to him. He was distant during my first trimester, but by the time my belly showed, he was taking me to doctor's appointments, making me smoothies, rubbing my back when I couldn't sleep. After the boys were born, something seemed to shift. He looked at them like they were his world. And for a while, I let myself believe that maybe he'd finally grown into the role of a father. 6 months after their birth, he proposed. We were at Torrey Pines, the sun's setting behind us, and he got down on one knee with this beautiful rose gold ring. I said yes, with tears in my eyes. All the doubt, all the fear I'd had in the beginning, it vanished in that moment. I was ready to be a wife, and I thought he was ready to be a husband. We planned our wedding slowly but carefully. A beachside ceremony in La Jolla. Neutral tones, simple elegance. It was everything I'd dreamed of since I was a girl. My parents adored Logan, and his family, well, let's just say they tolerated me. I was just a nurse. And they were old-money Californians who wore their lineage like designer labels. But I didn't care. Logan was mine. Our family was real. And nothing could ruin that. Or so I thought. The night before the wedding, Logan stayed at his parents' house, a few blocks from ours, as per tradition. I was in our home with the boys. We'd agreed to keep it low-key, no bachelor party, no drama. Just rest before the big day. That night, he called me. His voice was soft, loving. He told me how excited he was to see me walk down the aisle. Said he couldn't believe how lucky he was. We both got emotional. I remember clutching the phone to my chest when the call ended, smiling through tears. But the call didn't end, and what I heard next changed everything. At first, I thought the call had ended. I was about to plug in my phone when I heard a voice, Logan's father. Was that Ariana? He asked. There was a pause, and then Logan replied. But his voice was different, flat, tired. Yeah. Something in my chest tightened. Do you still feel the same way you did on Monday? His dad continued. Logan let out a low breath. Yeah, maybe worse. I stopped breathing. My hand trembled as I held the phone tighter to my ear. I should have hung up. I should have respected his privacy. But something about his tone felt off, like the air right before a storm. Then his mother's voice chimed in, icy and sharp. Logan, whether you feel ready or not doesn't matter anymore. You have responsibilities now. You can't keep dragging this out. He snapped. I'm not dragging anything out. You guys are the ones pushing me into this. I didn't even want this wedding. I didn't want any of it. His words punched through my chest like a knife. His father answered coolly, We're not forcing you. But understand this, if you walk away now, you're out of the trust. Completely. That's when it hit me. My entire world, our future, was hanging by a thread tied to a bank account. My engagement, our life together, the father of my children. None of it was real. It was conditional, transactional. And Logan? He was negotiating his freedom with their money. His mother's voice rose again. You already embarrassed this family by having kids out of wedlock. The least you can do is marry her and try to salvage your image. You think being a father starts only when you feel ready? You are a father. You don't get to pick and choose now. Why does no one care about what I want? Logan's voice cracked. Ariana didn't. She just decided to keep the babies without even talking to me. And you two only care about what the neighbors think. I covered my mouth with my hand, trying not to sob. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I never wanted kids. I didn't want to get married. I didn't want any of this. And now I'm trapped. You both are using money to blackmail me into marrying someone I don't love. My body went numb. The next sound was the click of a door opening and closing, followed by silence. I assumed Logan had stormed out. His phone must have still been sitting on the table because his parents kept talking. I told you he was too weak to handle real life, his mother muttered. We should have pushed harder for that prenup. My throat closed up. His father sighed. Well, she's not dumb. Maybe she'll walk away first and save us the trouble. That's when I ended the call. I sat there in complete stillness, my mind spinning. The man I was going to marry in less than 24 hours had just confessed to his parents that he didn't love me, didn't want our children, and only stayed because he was afraid of losing his inheritance. The room was quiet except for the soft breathing of my boys in the next room. I knew right then there was no wedding tomorrow. And I had to get out. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear myself think. I sat there in the dark for what felt like an hour, staring at nothing. The words from that conversation playing in a constant loop inside my head. I never wanted kids. I didn't want to get married. I'm trapped. I had given Logan an out. I told him I didn't expect anything from him, not even child support. I thought his decision to stay, to love the boys, to propose, it was real. But now I realized it was all performative. A well-rehearsed illusion. And I had fallen for every bit of it. I wiped my tears, walked to the nursery, and stood by the cribs where Noah and Nathan were sleeping. Their little chests rising and falling in perfect rhythm, soft baby breaths filling the quiet room. My knees almost buckled under the weight of what I was about to do. I kissed each of them on the forehead, then got to work. By 1:30 a.m., I had packed a small duffel with diapers, bottles, clothes for the boys, and my essentials. I didn't even touch my wedding dress. It still hung in the corner of my closet, untouched, unloved, just like me. I didn't leave a note. I didn't send a message. I just left. The streets were empty as I drove through San Diego's quiet suburbs, the city lights behind me fading into the distance. I had no idea where I was going, just that I needed to be anywhere but here. I booked a cheap room at a beachside inn in Encinitas. It wasn't fancy, but it was far enough and safe enough for what I needed: time, space, and silence. When we arrived, the boys had stirred a little, fussing softly as I moved them to the crib provided by the hotel. I rocked them gently, whispering sweet nothings, trying to hold back the storm inside me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window in the dark, watching the ocean flicker under moonlight, asking myself how I missed all the signs. How I could have loved someone so blindly. At around 3:45 a.m., I picked up my phone. I texted my maid of honor, my parents, and a few close friends. The wedding is canceled. I'll explain everything later. Please don't respond or contact Logan or his family. Then I turned off my phone. No calls. No tears. Just stillness. I spent what should have been the happiest morning of my life sitting on the edge of a hotel bed in a wrinkled t-shirt, eating dry cereal from a vending machine, and listening to my sons giggle as they played with a rubber spoon. They didn't care about weddings or broken promises or trust funds. They just wanted their mama. And for now, that was enough. The morning sun rose like any other, but it wasn't just another day. It was supposed to be my wedding day. I should have been at the venue by now, sipping coffee in a silk robe, surrounded by my bridesmaids, glowing with excitement, trying to stop my hands from shaking as they placed the veil over my head. Instead, I sat cross-legged on a hotel bed, hair tied up, no makeup, wearing a faded sweatshirt that smelled faintly of baby formula and tears. The boys were crawling across the carpet, squealing with delight at the sound their palms made against the hardwood floor. Their innocence was the only thing keeping me from falling apart again. At exactly 10 a.m., when I was supposed to be walking down the aisle, I was changing diapers. And you know what? For the first time in 24 hours, I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I had survived. I had escaped a lie wrapped in lace and roses. I had walked away before giving my life to a man who never really wanted to be mine. Logan's family had paid for the entire wedding venue, catering, floral design, a string quartet flown in from Napa. His mother insisted on an elevated aesthetic and had even hired a PR consultant to manage the press because some of her acquaintances were journalists. She treated the wedding like it was a brand launch. I was just the product. There were no calls from my parents, no questions from my friends. They had honored my request. They didn't show up at the venue. They didn't text me asking what had happened. They just waited. Logan, though? I imagined him arriving at the altar, looking around, realizing something was wrong. Maybe at first he thought I was just late. Maybe someone joked that I was taking my time to be dramatic. But when the clock ticked past noon, and the music stopped, and no one knew where I was, I wonder if panic set in. Did he think I got cold feet? Did he realize I had heard everything? Did his parents whisper to each other, hoping no one else had figured out what went wrong? I didn't care. They could deal with the embarrassment. They could explain to their guests why the bride never showed up. That wasn't my problem anymore. By early afternoon, I got a text from Logan's number. "Where are you? What is going on?" I didn't respond. I didn't even open it. I knew that once I did, the floodgates would open. Blame, guilt-tripping, gaslighting, apologies laced with self-pity. I didn't want any of it. Instead, I took the boys outside and walked them along the boardwalk by the beach. The wind was salty and strong. The sky was clear. People passed by smiling, probably assuming I was just a tired single mom on a beachside stroll. They had no idea that I was supposed to be in a wedding dress right now, that 100 guests were probably whispering about me, that somewhere across town, a violinist was packing up her gear and a 3-tier cake was being wheeled into a trash bin, that a life was unraveling in silence. But I didn't feel like a runaway bride. I felt like a woman who had just barely escaped a gilded cage. I returned to the house 2 days later. I had left the boys with my parents so I could move quickly. I wasn't sure if Logan would be there, but I prepared myself for it just in case. I kept my hoodie up and my keys ready. My only mission was to collect the last of my things and go. I thought maybe he would have gotten the message by now. I was wrong. The moment I pulled into the driveway, he was already there, sitting on the porch steps like some broken version of himself. Hair unkempt, dark circles under his eyes, clothes wrinkled like he hadn't changed in days. He stood up fast when he saw me, as if the sight of me yanked him back to life. "Ariana, wait," he said, voice hoarse, hands trembling. "Where the hell have you been? You disappeared. Do you know what you put me through?" I didn't say anything. I didn't have the energy for a performance. I walked past him toward the front door. He followed. "You humiliated me. My family, everyone was waiting. We thought something had happened to you." I turned slowly to face him. "Oh, something did happen," I said quietly. "You just weren't smart enough to end the call." His eyes widened. A beat of silence passed between us before the recognition hit him. He swallowed. You heard that?" "All of it," I replied. Deadpan. Every single word. From the moment your father asked, "Do you still feel the same?" to when your mother called me a mistake with a stethoscope. He looked stunned. His mouth opened to speak, then closed again. For once, Logan Pierce had nothing to say. I waited for you to defend me, I said, my voice rising despite myself. I waited to hear you tell them you loved me, that you chose this life, that we weren't a burden. But you just sat there, Logan. Sit there and let them tear me down like I was some charity case you got stuck with. He dropped his gaze to the ground. I didn't mean any of that, he mumbled. It was just pressure. I was venting. No, Logan. Venting is telling your friend that you're nervous. What you did was confess. You told the truth when you thought I wasn't listening. And now I'm supposed to just unhear it. He stepped closer. I panicked. My parents have been manipulating me my whole life. You know that. I didn't want to lose their support. And what about me, Logan? I snapped. What about the babies? You think I haven't been under pressure? You think I didn't have doubts, fears, panic attacks in the middle of the night while carrying twins alone because you couldn't look at me without guilt in your eyes. He stepped back. I exhaled, trying to calm my hands. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I came here to get my things, I said. Not to have a heart-to-heart. Please, he said, voice cracking. Don't do this. Don't take them away from me. You never wanted them, Logan, I said coldly. You said it yourself. His face turned pale. Without another word, I turned the key in the lock, stepped inside, and began gathering the rest of my life. Clothes, baby bottles, photo frames, documents, everything that still had meaning. Logan didn't follow. He sat back down on the steps, head in his hands. 30 minutes later, I came back out with the last bag and walked past him without looking back. That was the moment I knew the chapter was closed. Not with a bang, but with a silence that screamed louder than any vow ever could. 2 days after I left the house for good, I sat across from a lawyer in a small but neat office with cheerful curtains and a coffee machine that hissed more than it brewed. I hadn't slept much, hadn't really eaten. But I was clear about one thing. I wanted full custody of my sons. The lawyer, Mrs. Dahl, was kind but firm. You're doing the right thing by acting quickly, she said. Especially considering who you're dealing with. She was right. The Pierces weren't just wealthy, they were powerful. They had the kind of money that could buy silence, twist narratives, and bury truths under legal paperwork. And I had no doubt that if they felt threatened, they'd use every dollar to come after me. It didn't take long for the retaliation to begin. That same evening, I received a letter from Logan's parents' attorney, an elegantly worded piece of legal poison, masked in concern. They claimed I was emotionally unstable for disappearing before the wedding and that I had demonstrated erratic behavior, unfit for parenting. They suggested a temporary joint custody agreement in the best interest of the children. The audacity nearly made me laugh. But I didn't. Instead, I forwarded the letter to Mrs. Dahl and kept every screenshot, every voicemail, every passive-aggressive message that followed. I knew how this worked. They weren't just trying to share custody, they were trying to control the narrative, to make me the villain, the unstable ex-fiancé who bailed on their perfect son and cruelly took his children away. But I had one thing they didn't, the truth. And I wasn't afraid to use it. When Logan and I met again, this time in a neutral setting at the lawyer's office, I expected discomfort. Maybe tension. What I didn't expect was desperation. He looked like someone clinging to a ledge. You don't have to do this, he said as soon as we sat down. We can figure something out, just don't take them from me. I stared at him, unmoved. Logan, be honest with me. What changed? 1 week ago, you said you weren't ready to be a father. You practically admitted it. Now suddenly, you want to co-parent. He paused, looked away, and then muttered, it's complicated. I pressed, no, it's not. It's very simple. Either you want to be a father because you love them, or you're being pushed. That's when he cracked. He leaned forward, rubbing his temples, and said, my parents said if I lose custody, they'll cut me out permanently. They said if I can't even maintain a legal connection to my own kids, then I'm clearly unfit to inherit anything. There it was. The truth, like bile, rising up through his perfect teeth. He didn't come to the table because of love. He came because of money. Because his trust fund was once again dangling above his head like a golden leash. And he was willing to do anything, say anything, to keep it. I felt sick. I gave you an out, I said coldly. You didn't have to marry me. You didn't have to be a father. But you chose the performance. And now you're mad I'm ending the show. He didn't respond. Mrs. Dahl leaned forward. We're moving forward with full custody. We've documented everything, including that phone call Ariana overheard. If you choose to contest this, we'll bring it all to court. Logan didn't say a word, but his hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I saw the real him, the resentment, the shame, the helplessness. Not because he lost me or the boys, but because for the first time in his life, money couldn't fix it. I walked out of that room knowing two things. I was going to win. And Logan Pierce had just lost the only family that actually loved him for who he was, not what he had. 3 days passed without a word. No emails. No texts. No legal threats. Just silence. And then, out of nowhere, Logan messaged me. Can we meet? One last time. No lawyers. Just you and me. My instinct said no, but a part of me, maybe the part that still hoped he'd show a sliver of integrity, agreed. I chose a public place, a quiet coffee shop near the courthouse. Somewhere neutral. Somewhere I could leave easily if I needed to. When I arrived, he was already seated at the far end of the patio, wearing sunglasses and looking like he hadn't slept. Again. His phone sat, untouched on the table beside a half-empty espresso. He stood when he saw me and motioned toward the chair across from him. I didn't smile. I didn't greet him. I just sat down. He got straight to the point. I've been thinking, he began, voice low and rehearsed. Maybe we don't need to fight. Maybe we can find a compromise. I raised an eyebrow. Like what? He hesitated. Then leaned in slightly. Joint custody. No lawyers. No court drama. Just an agreement between us. You take primary care, I get weekends and some holidays. And in return, once my parents pass, I'll split my inheritance with you. The words hung in the air like spoiled meat. It took me a second to fully process what he'd just said. You're offering me money, I said slowly, in exchange for access to my children. It's not like that, he said quickly. It's just, I know they mean a lot to you. And I know this has been hard. I thought maybe if there was something long-term, something that helped you financially. I held up my hand. Stop. He blinked. Just stop, I repeated, sharper this time. You really think you can buy your way into fatherhood? That you can bribe me with a future inheritance, like I'm some business deal you're trying to close? It's not like that, he insisted, color rising in his cheeks. I'm trying to be fair. No, Logan, I said coldly. Fair would have been telling me the truth a year ago. Fair would have been not lying to my face every day while pretending to love the life we were building. Fair would have been earning a place in our kids' lives, not bargaining for one. His jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being rejected. I'm not doing this for me, he muttered. My parents. There it is again, I interrupted. Your parents. Always your parents. When are you going to stop living for them? He didn't answer. I stood, grabbing my bag. My voice was calm, but every syllable carried weight. I'd rather raise my sons on food stamps than accept a single dollar from a man who sees them as leverage. You can keep your inheritance, Logan. Buy yourself another life. One that doesn't require love, honesty, or a spine. He looked up at me, furious and helpless all at once. I turned my back and walked away. And I didn't look back. Not when he called my name. Not when he stood up to follow me. Not even when I heard the coffee mug shatter on the ground behind me, because that was the sound of a man realizing that for the first time in his life, his money meant nothing. I never heard from Logan again after that day. No messages. No legal documents. No more attempts to negotiate his way back into our lives. And then, a week later, I got a call from my lawyer. He signed the papers, she said. Logan has voluntarily terminated his parental rights. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. I just sat there, holding the phone, staring out the window as my twins played on the floor with a pile of wooden blocks and a singing octopus that wouldn't shut up. It was done. Truly, finally done. No more custody threats. No more pretending. No more ghosts of what could have been. I was free. I moved into a smaller apartment a week after that, just a 2-bedroom on the edge of a quiet neighborhood close to my parents' house. The rent was high, but manageable with help from my savings and a part-time nanny I hired to help with the boys while I went back to night shifts at the hospital. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every cracked tile, every sleepless night, every peanut butter smear on the couch, it all belonged to us. I hadn't just walked away from a wedding. I had walked into the life I was meant to build, with clear eyes, steady hands, and a heart that had finally stopped begging to be chosen. People kept telling me I was strong. Truth is, I never felt strong. I felt tired, grieving, angry, terrified, even. But I kept moving, kept feeding my babies, kept showing up for work, kept putting one foot in front of the other until one day, I realized I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. Some days are still hard. Some nights I still wonder what might have happened if I hadn't stayed on that call, if I hadn't heard the truth. But then Noah will wrap his tiny arms around my leg, or Nathan will fall asleep with his hand on my chest, and I'll remember. No father at all is better than one who didn't want to be one. I don't need a perfect life. I just need a real one. And now? That's exactly what I have. What would you have done if you overheard a conversation like that the night before your wedding? Do you think Ariana made the right choice by walking away, even with 2 kids in tow? Or would you have given him a second chance? Backhand index pointing down. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know which moment in her journey hit you the hardest. Because sometimes, the quietest exits lead to the loudest freedom.